The notification appeared on my phone at 7:34 a.m. on a Tuesday, a little red. Next to my banking app, the same app one had opened thousands of times before, to check my balance, to transfer money, to pay bills, to watch my savings grow. But this time, when I tapped the icon and entered my password, the screen didn't show my accounts, my balances, my hard-earned money. Instead, a single line of text appeared in bold black letters: access denied. Please contact your financial institution for assistance. I stared at the screen, confused, thinking it was a glitch, a server error, a temporary problem that would resolve itself if I just waited a few minutes and tried again. I closed the app, reopened it, entered my password again. The same message: access denied. I tried my laptop, my desktop, the bank's customer service line. Nothing worked. My accounts were frozen, locked, emptied, and no one would tell me why. My name is Tessa Marin. I'm 29 years old, and my parents forged a power of attorney to steal my trust fund for $140,000, the inheritance my grandmother had left me when she died, the money that was supposed to be my safety net, my down payment, my future. They had taken it all, not with a gun, not with a threat, but with a pen, a signature, and a notary who had never met me. They had signed my name, forged my consent, and walked into my bank as if they owned the place, because in their minds, they did. I was their daughter, and what was mine was theirs, or so they believed. Before I tell you what happened next, before I tell you about the bank investigation, the frozen accounts, the moment I confronted my parents and watched them lie to my face, I need you to do something. Hit like if you've ever been betrayed by someone who is supposed to protect you. Subscribe if you believe that karma always comes around, and drop a comment with your location and local time. I want to know where the survivors are watching from tonight. Let me take you back to the beginning, to the grandmother who loved me, to the trust fund she left me, to the parents who resented every penny of it. My grandmother, Eleanor Vance, was not a wealthy woman. Not in the way that people think of wealth, with mansions and yachts and private jets. She was a retired schoolteacher, a widow who had lived in the same small house in Portland, Oregon for 50 years. She drove a 10-year-old sedan, shopped at thrift stores, and clipped coupons from the Sunday paper. But she had been smart with her money, had saved and invested, had watched her nest egg grow. And when she died, she left me everything. $440,000, held in a trust until I turned 30, with my mother named as the trustee. You're the only one who never asked me for anything, Tessa, she told me. A few months before she died, you never asked for money, never asked for help, never asked for favors. You just loved me, and that's why I'm leaving it all to you. What about Mom and Dad, Grandma? What about my brother? Your parents have made their choices, and your brother has made his. They've had plenty of opportunities, plenty of chances, and they've squandered them. I'm not going to let them squander your future too. They're going to be angry, Grandma. They're going to fight it. Let them fight. I've already set up the trust, and I've named a lawyer as the executor. Your mother is the trustee, but she can't touch the money without your consent, not legally, not without consequences. I didn't know then how wrong she was, how easily my mother would circumvent her safeguards, how quickly my parents would betray her trust and mine. My parents, Richard and Diane Marin, had always had a complicated relationship with money. They spent what they didn't have, borrowed what they couldn't repay, and blamed everyone else for their problems. My father had been laid off from his job as a construction manager 5 years ago and had never found steady work since. My mother worked as a receptionist at a dental office, earning just enough to keep the lights on and the creditors at bay, and my brother, Derek, had a gambling problem that had drained their savings and their patience and their hope. You're so lucky, Tessa. You have no idea how lucky you are. I'm not lucky, Mom. I've worked hard, I've saved, I've sacrificed. You had a trust fund, you had a grandmother who spoiled you, you had opportunities that your brother never had. Grandma didn't spoil me, Mom. She loved me and she trusted me, and she wanted me to have a future. She gave Derek money too, she did, but he gambled it away, he wasted it, and now he has nothing. Don't you dare blame your brother for his struggles. You have no idea what he's been through, what he's dealing with, what he's sacrificed. What has he sacrificed, Mom? What has he ever sacrificed? He's never worked a full-time job, never paid his own rent, never taken responsibility for anything in his life. He's your brother, Tessa, and family helps family, no matter what. That was my mother's favorite phrase, family helps family. But what she meant was that I should help them, sacrifice for them, give them whatever they asked for, and expect nothing in return. My grandmother died when I was 25, the year the trust was established, the year my parents began circling like vultures, waiting for their chance to strike. At first, they were subtle, asking for small amounts, a few thousand here, a few thousand there, to cover emergencies, to pay unexpected bills, to help Derek with his medical expenses, and I gave in because they were my parents, because I felt guilty, because I wanted to believe that they would pay me back, that they would change, that they would finally take responsibility for their own lives. Tessa, we need $10,000. Your father's truck broke down, and he needs it for work. He doesn't have a job, Mom. Why does he need a truck? He's looking for work. He needs reliable transportation, and we can't afford to fix it ourselves. I gave you $5,000 last month, and the month before that, and the month before that. I can't keep doing this, Mom. I have my own bills, my own expenses, my own future to think about. Your future will be fine, Tessa. You have the trust, you have your grandmother's money, you have everything, your father and I have nothing, and your brother has nothing. We're drowning, Tessa, and you're the only one who can throw us a lifeline. I threw the lifeline, again and again, until the trust was depleted, until there was nothing left, until the only thing I had was the memory of my grandmother's love and the bitter taste of betrayal. The phone call came on a Tuesday, the bank's fraud department, a woman named Margaret Chen who spoke in clipped, professional tones. Ms. Marin, we've detected unusual activity on your trust account. There have been several large withdrawals over the past 6 months, totaling approximately $440,000. We need to verify that these transactions were authorized by you. What withdrawals? I haven't made any withdrawals. I've been waiting until I turned 30 to access the trust. That was the agreement. The withdrawals were made by the trustee, Diane Marin, using a power of attorney document signed by you. The document was notarized and filed with the bank. We assumed it was legitimate. I never signed a power of attorney. I never authorized my mother to access my trust. She forged my signature. She must have forged my signature. I'm sorry, Ms. Marin, but the document appears to be in order. We'll need to conduct an investigation, but in the meantime, we've frozen the account to prevent any further withdrawals. There's nothing left to freeze, Ms. Chen. She's taken everything for $140,000, gone, vanished, stolen. I understand, Ms. Marin, and I'm sorry. We'll do everything we can to recover the funds and identify the perpetrators, but I need you to understand that this is a criminal matter, and you'll need to involve the police. I hung up the phone, sat in the silence of my apartment, and felt the walls closing in around me. The dream I had been building, the future I had been planning, the security I had been counting on, all of it gone, taken by the people who were supposed to love me most. The hours after that phone call were a blur of disbelief and horror, the kind of numbness that comes not from shock, but from the slow, sickening realization that something you thought was solid, unshakable, permanent, has crumbled to dust. I sat on my couch, staring at my phone. The banking app still open, the words "access denied" still glowing on the screen, as if mocking me, as if saying, "You thought you were safe. You thought you were secure. You thought you had a future, but you were wrong." I tried calling my mother, no answer. I tried my father, no answer. I tried my brother, no answer. The silence was deafening. The absence was overwhelming. The betrayal was complete. They had taken my money and run, disappeared into the shadows, leaving me alone to clean up the mess they had made. My grandmother's face floated in my memory, her kind eyes, her gentle voice, her unwavering belief that I was different, that I was worthy, that I deserved better than the family I had been born into. She had trusted me with her legacy, had entrusted me with her life savings, had believed that I would honor her memory by building something beautiful, something lasting, something meaningful, and now it was gone. All of it, stolen by the very people she had tried to protect me from. I'm sorry, Grandma. I'm so sorry. I should have listened to you, should have been more careful, should have protected your money the way you protected me. But it was too late for apologies, too late for regrets, too late for anything except action. I had to find out what happened, had to track down the money, had to hold my parents accountable for their crimes, even if it meant destroying the family, even if it meant sending them to prison, even if it meant losing them forever. I called the police the next morning, filed a report, gave them the details, the trust fund, the power of attorney, the forged signature, the missing money. The officer who took my statement was sympathetic but skeptical. He had seen cases like this before. Families torn apart by greed, parents stealing from children, children stealing from parents, and he knew that the chances of recovering the money were slim, especially if my parents had already spent it. "We'll do what we can, Ms. Marin, but you need to be realistic. This isn't like a bank robbery where the money is sitting in a vault waiting to be recovered. Your parents could have transferred the funds to offshore accounts, could have spent them on anything, could have hidden them in ways we may never find. I don't care about the money, not really. I care about justice. I care about accountability. I care about making sure they never do this to anyone else." "That's admirable, Ms. Marin, but you need to understand that this is going to be a long, difficult process, and there are no guarantees." "I understand, but I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to let them get away with this. I'm not going to let them destroy my future without a fight." The investigation began immediately. The bank's fraud department worked with the police to trace the transactions, to identify the accounts where the money had been sent, to track down the notary who had witnessed the forged power of attorney. It was slow, tedious work, the kind of work that requires patience and persistence and the willingness to follow every lead, no matter how small. The notary was a woman named Patricia Miller, a friend of my mother's from church, who had notarized the power of attorney without verifying my identity, without asking questions, without doing her job. She claimed that my mother had told her I was out of the country, that I had authorized the document, that everything was legal and above board. I trusted her. She was a friend. She wouldn't lie to me. She wouldn't put me in this position. "She did lie to you, Ms. Miller. She committed fraud, and you helped her, whether you knew it or not. You're responsible for notarizing a forged document, and you could lose your license, your livelihood, your reputation." I didn't know. I thought it was legitimate. I thought she was telling the truth." "Ignorance is not a defense, Ms. Miller, and your negligence has cost Ms. Marin $440,000. I suggest you cooperate fully with our investigation, or you may find yourself facing criminal charges as well." The money trail led to a series of accounts, some domestic, some offshore. My parents had been clever, had covered their tracks, had moved the funds quickly to avoid detection, but they weren't clever enough, hadn't anticipated that I would fight back, that I would hire lawyers, that I would work with the police, that I would spend every waking moment trying to track them down. In the weeks that followed, I learned things about my parents that I never wanted to know, about their debts, their gambling, their desperate attempts to maintain a lifestyle they couldn't afford. My father had been secretly gambling for years, had run up hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt, had borrowed from loan sharks, from friends, from anyone who would lend him money. My mother had known, had enabled him, had covered for him, had sacrificed her integrity and her daughter's future to protect him. "How could you, Mom? How could you do this to me, to Grandma, to our family? You don't understand, Tessa. You don't know what it's been like. The pressure, the stress, the fear. Your father was going to lose everything. We were going to lose the house, the cars, everything we've worked for. So you stole from me. You forged my signature. You took my grandmother's money, the money she left me, the money she trusted me to protect. We were going to pay you back. We were going to make it right. We just needed a little time, a little help, a little understanding. You had time, you had help, you had understanding, and you threw it all away. You chose him over me. You chose his addiction over my future. You chose his lies over the truth." My mother's voice cracked, her tears fell, her excuses crumbled, but I felt nothing, not pity, not compassion, not the faintest flicker of the love that had once bound us together. She had crossed a line, had betrayed me in the worst possible way, had proven that her loyalty to my father was stronger than her love for me, and I could never forgive her for that. "I'm sorry, Tessa. I'm so sorry. I never meant to hurt you. I never meant for any of this to happen." "Sorry doesn't fix it, Mom. Sorry doesn't give me back my money, my future, my trust. Sorry doesn't undo the damage you've done, the lies you've told, the crimes you've committed. What are you going to do? Are you going to press charges? Are you going to send us to prison?" "I'm going to do what I have to do to get my money back, to hold you accountable, to make sure you never do this to anyone else. Whether that means prison or probation or something else, I don't know, but I'm not going to let you walk away from this without consequences. We're your parents, Tessa. We gave you life. We raised you. We loved you. You can't send us to prison. You stopped being my parents the moment you forged my signature, the moment you stole my money, the The moment you chose his addiction over my future, you're not my parents anymore. You're just people who share my DNA, and I don't owe you anything. The days that followed were a blur of phone calls, legal documents, and sleepless nights. I hired a forensic accountant, a woman named Sarah Chin, who specialized in tracing stolen assets and unraveling complex financial frauds. She was expensive, the kind of expensive that made me wince when I saw her hourly rate, but she was also brilliant, relentless, and determined to find my money, no matter where it had been hidden. Sarah had worked on dozens of similar cases over her 20-year career, had seen families torn apart by greed, had watched parents steal from children and children steal from parents, and she had learned that the worst betrayals were always the ones that came from the people you trusted most. Your parents were clever, Tessa, but they weren't clever enough. They made mistakes, left traces, created a trail that we can follow. It's going to take time, and it's going to take patience, but I'm confident that we can recover at least some of the funds. How much, Sarah? How much do you think we can recover? It's hard to say. They've already spent a significant portion paying off debts, buying cars, taking vacations, but there are still accounts that we can freeze, assets that we can seize, properties that we can put liens on. I'm hopeful that we can recover 100,000, maybe 200 if we're lucky. That's not enough, Sarah. That's not nearly enough. I was supposed to use that money to buy a house, to start a business, to build a future, and now it's gone, most of it anyway. I know, Tessa, and I'm sorry. But something is better than nothing, and justice is better than silence, and accountability is better than letting them walk away without consequences. I spent the next several weeks working with Sarah, tracing the money, following the paper trail, building a case that would stand up in court. We found accounts in the Cayman Islands, in Switzerland, in Panama, hidden behind layers of shell companies and fake names. My parents had been planning this for months, maybe years, had been siphoning money from the trust long before they forged the power of attorney, had been living beyond their means, spending money they didn't have, and they had decided that my inheritance was the solution to all their problems. The criminal case against my parents moved slowly, the wheels of justice turning at their own pace, indifferent to my pain, my fear, my desperate need for closure. They had been charged with forgery, identity theft, and fraud, serious felonies that carried significant prison time, but their lawyer was skilled, experienced, and determined to get them off on technicalities. He filed motion after motion, trying to suppress evidence, trying to dismiss charges, trying to delay the inevitable. Your parents are willing to make a deal, Tessa. They're willing to return the remaining funds, to cooperate with the investigation, to plead guilty to lesser charges in exchange for a reduced sentence. What kind of deal? What kind of lesser charges? They're offering to plead guilty to misdemeanor fraud, to serve probation instead of prison time, to pay restitution over a period of years. Years. They want to pay me back over years, while they're free, while they're living their lives, while I'm struggling to rebuild mine. I know it's not what you wanted, Tessa, but it may be the best we can get. Trials are risky, juries are unpredictable, and there's always a chance that they could be acquitted, that they could walk away with nothing. I don't care about the risk, Sarah. I care about justice, I care about accountability, I care about making sure they never do this to anyone else. My mother called me from the county jail, where she was being held pending trial. Her voice was small, broken, pleading, the voice of a woman who had finally realized that she was not the victim, that she had made terrible choices, that she was about to lose everything. Tessa, please, you have to help us. You have to drop the charges. You can't let us go to prison. We're your parents. We love you. You don't love me, Mom. You love money. You love Dad. You love the idea of being able to spend whatever you want without consequences, but you don't love me. Not really, not the way a mother is supposed to love her daughter. That's not true, Tessa. That's not true. I've always loved you. I just made some bad choices. I got caught up in the moment. I didn't think. You didn't think, Mom. You didn't think. You forged my signature. You stole my money. You destroyed my future, and you didn't think? I was desperate, Tessa. Your father was in trouble. We were going to lose everything. I didn't know what else to do. You could have asked me, Mom. You could have told me the truth. You could have come to me and asked for help, but you didn't. You chose to lie. You chose to steal. You chose to treat me like an enemy instead of a daughter. I rejected the plea deal, refused to let my parents off the hook, insisted on a trial, even if it meant facing them in court, even if it meant reliving the pain, even if it meant losing everything I had left. I was determined to see them held accountable, to watch them face the consequences of their choices, to prove that I was not the victim they thought I was. The trial was scheduled for 6 months later, 6 months of waiting, of preparing, of hoping, 6 months of working with Sarah, with the prosecutors, with the police, to build a case that was airtight, unassailable, undeniable. We had the forged power of attorney, the bank records, the testimony of the notary, the admissions my mother had made on the phone. Everything we needed to prove that my parents had committed fraud, that they had stolen my money, that they had betrayed me in the worst
possible way.
The prosecutor assigned to the case was a woman named Elena Vasquez, a seasoned trial attorney with a reputation for being tough but fair. She had handled dozens of fraud cases over her career, had seen families destroyed by greed, and had no patience for defendants who tried to manipulate the system. Your parents are going to try to make you feel guilty, Tessa. They're going to try to manipulate you, to guilt you, to make you feel like this is your fault. Don't let them. You didn't do anything wrong. You're the victim here, not them. I know, Elena, I know, but it's hard. They're my parents. I used to love them. I used to trust them. I used to believe that they would never hurt me. People change, Tessa, or maybe they don't. Maybe they were always capable of this, and you just didn't see it because you didn't want to see it. The trial began on a Monday. The courtroom was packed with reporters, spectators, curious strangers who had followed the case in the news. My parents sat at the defense table, my mother pale and trembling, my father stoic and silent. They didn't look at me, hadn't looked at me once during the entire proceedings, and I wondered if they were ashamed, or if they had convinced themselves that they were the victims, that I was the one who had betrayed them. My mother was dressed in a navy blue suit, her hair freshly dyed, her makeup carefully applied. She looked like the woman who had raised me, the woman who had read me bedtime stories and taken me to school and kissed my scraped knees, but her eyes were different, harder, colder, more calculating, and I realized that I was looking at a stranger, a woman I had never really known. My father wore a gray suit that didn't fit anymore, too loose in the shoulders, too tight around the waist, evidence of the stress that had been eating at them for months. He looked older than I remembered, smaller, frilier, more fragile, but his eyes were the same, hard and unyielding, refusing to admit that he had done anything wrong. The prosecutor, Elena Vasquez, laid out the case methodically, clearly, devastatingly. She presented the forged power of attorney, the bank records, the testimony of the notary, the admissions my mother had made on the phone, piece by piece. She built a wall of evidence that my parents' lawyer could not breach. The defendant, Diane Marin, signed a power of attorney document claiming that her daughter, Tessa Marin, had authorized her to access the trust fund. The document was notarized by Patricia Miller, who has admitted that she did not verify the signer's identity. The document is a forgery, and the defendant used it to steal $440,000 from her daughter's trust fund. The defense maintains that Ms. Marin believed she had her daughter's permission, that there was a misunderstanding, that no crime was committed. A misunderstanding that resulted in the theft of $440,000, a misunderstanding that has devastated the victim's life, a misunderstanding that the defendant has never apologized for, never taken responsibility for, never even acknowledged. My mother took the stand on the second day, her voice shaking, her hands trembling, her eyes darting around the room like a trapped animal. She had always been good at playing the victim, had always known how to cry on command, how to make herself look small and helpless and innocent. But this time, the performance wasn't working. The jury had seen the evidence, had heard the testimony, and they were not fooled. Mrs. Marin, did you forge your daughter's signature on the power of attorney document? I don't remember. It was a long time ago. I was under a lot of stress. My memory isn't what it used to be. You don't remember, Mrs. Marin. You don't remember forging your daughter's signature. You don't remember stealing $440,000. You don't remember committing fraud. I didn't steal anything. I was the trustee. I had the right to access the funds. You had the right to access the funds as trustee, but you did not have the right to take the money for your own use. You did not have the right to spend it on your husband's gambling debts. You did not have the right to transfer it to offshore accounts. Those actions were not part of your duties as trustee. They were crimes. My mother started crying. The same tears she had used so many times to manipulate me, to guilt me, to make me feel sorry for her. But this time, I felt nothing, no pity, no compassion, no desire to comfort her. I just sat in the front row, watching her performance, waiting for it to end. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to hurt anyone. I was just trying to help my family. You were trying to help yourself, Mrs. Marin. You were trying to protect your husband, to enable his addiction, to maintain your lifestyle, and you were willing to sacrifice your daughter to do it. My father took the stand on the third day, not because he wanted to, but because his lawyer had convinced him that it was his only chance to avoid a maximum sentence. He walked to the witness box slowly, deliberately, the way a man walks to his own execution. His face was pale, his hands were shaking, his eyes were hollow. He looked like someone who had been running for a very long time and had finally run out of places to hide. Mr. Marin, did you know that your wife was forging your daughter's signature on the power of attorney document? I didn't know at first, not at the beginning. Diane told me she had Tessa's permission. She said Tessa was too busy to sign the papers herself, that she had authorized the transaction over the phone. And, did you believe her? I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe that everything was okay, that we weren't doing anything wrong, that we were just borrowing the money, that we would pay it back. But you didn't pay it back, Mr. Marin. You spent it on gambling, on cars, on vacations, on everything except your daughter. I was going to pay it back. I had a plan. I was going to win big at the casino. I was going to pay off all our debts. I was going to make everything right. You had a plan, Mr. Marin. You had a plan to gamble your daughter's inheritance, to risk her future on a game of chance, and you think that makes it better, that makes it acceptable? I know it was wrong. I know I made a mistake, but I'm not a criminal. I'm not a thief. I'm just a man who made bad choices, who got in over his head, who didn't know how to ask for help. You knew how to ask for help when you wanted money, Mr. Marin. You knew how to ask your wife to forge your daughter's signature. You knew how to ask your notary friend to look the other way. You knew how to ask your banker to process the transactions. You knew exactly how to ask for help when it served your purposes. The cross-examination was brutal, relentless, devastating. The prosecutor tore apart my father's testimony, exposed his lies, his excuses, his pathetic attempts to justify the unjustifiable. By the time she was finished, my father was crying, his head in his hands, his shoulders shaking, his dignity in shreds. No further questions, Your Honor. You may step down, Mr. Marin. He walked back to the defense table, his legs unsteady, his face ashen, his eyes empty. My mother reached for his hand, but he pulled away, unable to bear her touch, unable to look at her, unable to face the reality of what they had done together. The defense rested its case that afternoon, calling no more witnesses, presenting no more evidence. They knew they had lost, knew that the jury would convict, knew that my parents would be going to prison. Their only hope was to minimize the damage, to beg for leniency, to throw themselves on the mercy of the court. The jury deliberated for 3 days, 3 days of waiting, of pacing, of praying. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't think about anything except the verdict. Sarah stayed with me, held my hand, reminded me to breathe, told me that whatever happened, I would survive. You've been through worse, Tessa. You've survived betrayal. You've survived loss. You've survived the realization that the people you loved were not who you thought they were. You can survive this too. I don't know if I can, Sarah. I don't know if I have anything left. I feel empty, hollow, like there's nothing inside me anymore. That's not emptiness, Tessa. That's space. Space for new things, new people, new love, new joy. You've spent so long being filled with their pain, their anger, their lies, and now, finally, there's room for something else, something better, something that is yours. On the 4th day, the jury returned with a verdict. The courtroom was packed. The tension was thick. My parents sat at the defense table, their faces pale, their hands clasped together, their eyes fixed on the jury foreman. I sat in the front row, next to Sarah, my heart pounding, my breath shallow, my hands shaking. We, the jury, in the case of the state of Texas versus Diane Marin and Richard Marin, find the defendants guilty on all counts. My mother screamed, a loud, piercing wail that echoed through the courtroom. My father slumped in his chair, his head in his hands, his shoulders shaking. The judge banged her gavel, called for order, and the bailiffs moved to restrain my mother, who had begun to hyperventilate, to sob, to beg for mercy. Please, please, you can't do this. We're innocent. We didn't mean to hurt anyone. We're good people. We're good parents. Please, please. Mrs. Marin, you've been convicted of serious crimes, and you will be sentenced accordingly. I will hear arguments from both sides before determining the appropriate sentence, but I warn you, any further outbursts will result in you being held in contempt of court. My mother fell silent, her body shaking, her face buried in her hands. My father stared at the floor, his expression unreadable, his emotions hidden behind a wall of shock and disbelief. The sentencing hearing was scheduled for a month later. My parents were taken into custody immediately, their bail revoked, and they awaited sentencing in the county jail. I didn't visit them, didn't call, didn't write. There was nothing left to say, nothing left to do, nothing left to save. During that month, I worked with Sarah to calculate the full extent of my losses, not just the stolen money, but the legal fees, the investigative costs, the therapy bills, the lost opportunities, the years of stress and anxiety and sleepless nights. We presented a victim impact statement to the court, detailing the emotional and financial devastation my parents had caused. This is not just about money, Your Honor. This is about trust, about family, about the fundamental bond between parent and child. The defendants took advantage of their daughter's love, her trust, her faith in them, and they used it to steal from her, to destroy her credit, to derail her future. The defense acknowledges that the defendants made mistakes, but we ask the court to consider their difficult circumstances, their financial struggles, their genuine remorse, and to show them leniency. Remorse, Mr. Stone. Where is the remorse? The defendants have never apologized to their daughter, never taken responsibility for their actions, never shown any genuine understanding of the harm they've caused. They are not remorseful. They are simply sorry they got caught. The judge, a woman named Patricia Okonkwo, with kind eyes and a firm voice, listened carefully to both sides, reviewed the evidence, considered the arguments, and then delivered her sentence. Mrs. Marin, Mr. Marin, you have been convicted of serious crimes, crimes that involved a profound betrayal of trust, not just the trust of your daughter, but the trust of the bank, the trust of the notary, the trust of the legal system. You are not first-time offenders. You have a history of financial mismanagement, a history of living beyond your means, a history of treating other people's money as if it were your own. Your Honor, we're old, we're sick, we're sorry for what we did. We never meant to hurt anyone. We just wanted to save our family. We just wanted to keep a roof over our heads. You wanted to keep a roof over your heads by taking the roof from your daughter, Mrs. Marin. You wanted to save your family by stealing from your child. That is not desperation. That is entitlement. That is greed. That is the belief that your needs matter more than anyone else's, and that belief is what brought you here today. She sentenced my mother to 5 years in federal prison, my father to 6 years. She ordered them to pay restitution to me in the amount of $440,000, to perform community service, to undergo financial counseling, and to have no contact with me except through a court-approved mediator. My mother screamed again, louder this time, more desperate, more unhinged. The bailiffs had to restrain her, to drag her from the courtroom, to place her in handcuffs. My father walked out under his own power, his head bowed, his shoulders slumped, his eyes empty. I sat in the courtroom, alone, the other spectators filing out, the reporters rushing to file their stories, the lawyers packing up their briefs, and I felt nothing, not anger, not satisfaction, not relief, just a quiet, exhausted emptiness, the same emptiness I had felt when I first saw the words, "Access denied," on my phone. The days after the sentencing were strange, disorienting, like waking from a dream that had lasted my entire life, not knowing what was real and what had been imagined, not knowing who I was without the weight of my parents' betrayal pressing down on me, not knowing how to be free after so many years of being trapped. I started going to therapy. A woman named Dr. Sarah Chen, no relation to my accountant, who specialized in family trauma and financial abuse. She helped me unpack the years of manipulation, the guilt, the shame, the desperate need to earn my parents' love, even when they had proven again and again that they were not capable of giving it. You've been conditioned to believe that love is conditional, Tessa, that you have to earn it, that you can lose it if you make a mistake, but that's not love, that's control, and you deserve better. How do I learn to love myself, Dr. Chen? How do I stop believing the lies they told me? You start by telling yourself the truth. Every day, until you believe it, you are worthy, you are enough, you are loved, not because of what you do, not because of what you have, but because of who you are. I wanted to believe her, wanted to trust that she was right, wanted to let go of the fear that had been my companion for so long, but the fear was persistent, tenacious, a weed that kept growing back no matter how many times I pulled it out. The first year after my parents were sentenced was the loneliest of my life, not because I didn't have friends, not because I didn't have support, but because I had to learn how to exist without the weight of their expectations, their judgments, their constant, low-grade disappointment in every choice I made. I had spent my whole life trying to prove myself to them, trying to earn their approval, trying to be good enough. And now they were gone, and I didn't know who I was without that struggle. I kept working with Sarah Chin, the forensic accountant, not because I needed to recover more money, but because she had become a friend, a mentor, a source of stability in a world that had been turned upside down. She helped me understand that I was not defined by my parents' crimes, that I was not responsible for their choices, that I was allowed to move on, to heal, to build a new life. You're not the same person you were, Tessa. You've grown, you've changed, you've become someone new, and that someone deserves to be happy, to be free, to be at peace. I don't know if I know how to be happy, Sarah. I don't know if I know how to be free. I don't know if I know how to be at peace. You'll learn, Tessa. You'll learn. It won't happen overnight, but it will happen one day. You'll wake up and realize that the weight has lifted, that the darkness has faded, that the sun is shining, and that you're ready to live again. I started taking small steps, tentative, hesitant, afraid. I bought a new car, the first car I had ever owned that wasn't secondhand, that didn't break down every few months, that didn't smell like cigarette smoke and regret. It was a small thing, a symbol, a reminder that I was not the same person who had been sleeping in her car, who had been eating beans and rice, who had been praying for a miracle. I found a new apartment, not the cramped studio where I had been living, but a one-bedroom with a balcony and a view of the city. It was more expensive than what I was used to, but I could afford it now, or at least, I could afford it if I was careful. If I didn't spend recklessly, if I didn't let the fear of losing everything prevent me from enjoying what I had. I started dating, tentatively, nervously, the way you approach a scared animal, not wanting to startle it, not wanting to scare it away. I had been burned before, had trusted the wrong people, had given my heart to those who didn't deserve it, but I was learning, slowly, painfully, that not everyone was like my parents, that some people were kind, were honest, were capable of love without conditions. I met a man named David, a teacher, kind and patient and steady. He didn't push, didn't pressure, didn't demand anything I wasn't ready to give. He listened when I talked about my past, held me when I cried, and never once made me feel like I was too much, or not enough, or broken beyond repair. You're not broken, Tessa. You're not damaged. You're not a victim. You're a survivor, and I'm honored to know you, to be part of your life, to love you. I don't know how to love, David. I don't know how to trust. I don't know how to be in a relationship without waiting for the other shoe to drop, without waiting for the betrayal, without waiting for the pain. Then we'll learn together, we'll figure it out together, we'll take it one day at a time, one step at a time, and we won't give up, no matter what. My mother wrote me a letter from prison, 6 months into her sentence. The envelope was addressed in her familiar handwriting, the loops and swirls that I had seen on 1,000 birthday cards, 1,000 notes, 1,000 reminders of what I had lost and what I had never really had. I opened it with trembling hands, not knowing what to expect, an apology, an explanation, a plea for forgiveness, or more blame, more accusations, more guilt. Dear Tessa, I'm not going to apologize because I know you wouldn't believe me, and I'm not going to ask for forgiveness because I know you wouldn't give it, but I want you to know that I think about you every day, that I pray for you every night, that I hope you're happy, that I hope you're healthy, that I hope you're at peace. I know I made mistakes, I know I hurt you, I know I can never undo what I did, but I want you to know that I love you, that I've always loved you, that I will always love you no matter what happens, no matter how much time passes, no matter how far apart we are. Your father is not doing well, his health is failing, his spirit is broken. He asks about you sometimes, wonders if you're okay, wonders if you've forgiven us, wonders if there's any hope for reconciliation. I don't know if there is, I don't know if you want there to be, but I want you to know that the door is always open, that we will always welcome you back, that we will always be your parents, no matter what. Love, Mom. I read the letter 3 times, looking for the lie, the manipulation, the hidden agenda, but I didn't find it, or maybe I didn't want to find it. Maybe I wanted to believe that she meant what she said, that she had changed, that she was capable of love without conditions, without expectations, without the need to control. I folded the letter, put it back in the envelope, and placed it in a drawer, next to my grandmother's rosary, next to the photograph of my parents on their wedding day, next to the memories of a family that had once been whole and was now shattered beyond repair. I didn't write back. Not that day, not that week, not that month, but I kept the letter, and I didn't throw it away. My father was released from prison after serving 4 years of his 6-year sentence. Good behavior, early parole. He moved into a small apartment in Nevada. Not the house he had lost, not the life he had once known, but a cramped one-bedroom with cheap furniture and thin walls and the smell of cigarette smoke from the neighbors. Derek called to tell me, his voice heavy with exhaustion and resignation. He's not doing well, Tessa. He's lost weight, he's not eating, he's not sleeping. He just sits in his apartment and watches television and waits for Mom to be released. What does he want? Derek, what does he expect me to do? He wants to see you, he wants to talk to you, he wants to apologize, he wants to make amends. He can write me a letter, Derek, he can call me, he can reach out, he doesn't need you to be his messenger. He's too proud, Tessa, too ashamed. He doesn't know how to ask. He doesn't know how to say he was wrong. Then he hasn't changed, Derek. He's still the same person who stole my inheritance, who blamed me for his own crimes, who refused to take responsibility for his own choices. If he wants to apologize, he knows where to find me, but I'm not going to chase him. I'm not going to beg him. I'm not going to make it easy for him. He needs to earn it. He needs to work for it. He needs to prove that he's different. My mother was released after serving 3 years of her 5-year sentence. She moved in with my father in his small apartment, and together they tried to rebuild a life that had been destroyed by their own greed, their own entitlement, their own refusal to accept that their daughter was not their property, was not their insurance policy, was not their retirement plan. I didn't visit them, didn't call them, didn't write them letters, but I thought about them often, wondered if they were okay, wondered if they had changed, wondered if there was any hope for reconciliation, for healing, for forgiveness. Therapists would say that forgiveness is for the forgiver, not the forgiven, that holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die, that letting go is not the same as condoning, that moving on is not the same as forgetting. I tried to believe that, tried to internalize it, tried to make it part of my daily practice, but the anger was still there, buried deep, hidden beneath layers of busyness and productivity and the relentless pursuit of a life that looked successful, looked happy, looked complete. But at night, alone in my apartment, listening to the city sounds outside my window, I could feel it, a simmering resentment, a quiet fury, a cold rage that refused to be extinguished. I started writing, not letters to my parents, but a journal, a record of my thoughts, my feelings, my fears, my hopes. I wrote about the trust fund, the forged signature, the trial, the prison sentences. I wrote about my grandmother, about her love, her sacrifice, her belief in me. I wrote about David, about the new life we were building together, about the future that was finally starting to look bright. Dr. Chin said the journal was a good idea, a way to process the emotions, to give them form, to release them onto the page, so they didn't fester inside me, poisoning everything they touched. You're doing the work, Tessa, the hard work, the necessary work, the work that most people avoid because it's too painful, too uncomfortable, too real. It doesn't feel like work, it feels like bleeding, like I'm cutting myself open and watching the blood spill onto the page, and I don't know how to stop, I don't know if I want to stop. That's the nature of healing. It hurts. It's messy. It's not linear. You have good days and bad days, days when you feel like you're making progress and days when you feel like you're back at the beginning, but you're not. You're never back at the beginning. You're just in a different place on the same spiral, seeing the same patterns from a different angle. I never got the closure I wanted, never got the apology I deserved, never got the chance to say the things I needed to say. My father died 5 years after his release, a heart attack, sudden, unexpected, the kind that comes without warning and takes you before you have a chance to say goodbye. My mother followed him 2 years later. Cancer, slow, painful, relentless. I didn't go to their funerals, couldn't bring myself to stand over their graves, to listen to people talk about what wonderful parents they had been, to pretend that I was grieving the loss of people who had caused me so much pain. I mourned them in my own way, in my own time, in the privacy of my own heart. Are you okay, Tessa? Do you want to talk about it? I don't know, David. I don't know if I'm okay. I don't know if I'll ever be okay, but I'm better than I was. I'm lighter than I was. I feel like I've been carrying this weight for so long, and now, finally, I can put it down. You've been carrying it since you were a child, Tessa, carrying the burden of their expectations, their disappointments, their failures, and now, finally, you're free. I don't feel free, David. I feel empty, hollow, like there's nothing left inside me. That's not emptiness, Tessa. That's space. Space for new things, new people, new love, new joy. You've spent so long being filled with their pain, their anger, their lies, and now, finally, there's room for something else, something better, something that is yours. Here's what I want you to know. If you're watching this and you see yourself in my story, the one who was betrayed, the one who was stolen from, the one who was told you weren't enough, the one who had to fight for what was rightfully yours, hear me. You're not what they said you were. You are not the failure, the disappointment, the lost cause. You are the one who survived, the one who kept going, the one who found a way to fight back. Not because you had money, not because you had power, but because you had the truth. And the truth, no matter how well it's hidden, no matter how long it's buried, always, eventually, comes to light. And survival is not pretty. It's not clean. It's not a movie where the credits roll and everyone lives happily ever after. Survival is messy. It's courtrooms and lawyers and sleepless nights. It's years of therapy and healing and learning to trust again. It's forgiving yourself for not being perfect, for not being strong enough, for not being fast enough, for not being enough. It's planting flowers in a garden and waiting for them to bloom. It's sitting on a balcony and watching the sunset and letting go of the weight you've been carrying your whole life. But survival is also yours. No one can take it from you, not the parents who stole from you, not the brother who enabled them, not the system that failed you survived, and that is the only victory that matters. I forgave my parents, not because they deserved it, not because I had forgotten, but because I was tired of carrying their weight, tired of being defined by their cruelty, tired of letting their choices shape my life. Forgiveness was not for them. It was for me. It was the key that unlocked the door I had been trapped behind. The door that led to the garden, the ocean, the future. My name is Tessa Marin. I'm 34 years old. I live in a small apartment with a balcony and a view of the city. I have a partner who loves me, friends who support me, and a future that is bright with possibility. I don't have a perfect life. I don't have a happy ending, but I have peace, and peace, I have learned, is the best revenge. The money is gone, the parents who stole it are gone, and I am free, finally, completely, utterly free. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever been betrayed by someone who was supposed to protect you, if you've ever had to fight for what was rightfully yours, if you've ever had to rebuild your life from nothing, leave a comment. Tell me, what did you survive? Thank you for listening. I'll see you next time.